Hello, hello, hello. First of all, thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't, please subscribe to the podcast. I have a YouTube channel and Instagram, but the podcast is new and I'm loving it. This week, I have some very exciting news to share. Exciting and also terrifying. I am pregnant with baby number 2. So, there's a lot to tell about this because let's just get right into it. So Seth and his sister in age are very close. Me and my sister are like 16 months. Him and his sister are very similar. So we were like, we want our kids to be pretty close in age. So we knew that when Aaliyah was born, we were going to go for it fairly soon after. In fact, we were like, if we have Irish twins, that would be okay, which means 2 under 1. Somebody was looking out for us and did not give us Irish twins. But because Aaliyah would never take a bottle, I exclusively breastfed her day and night, all the time. And because of that, I never got my period. So at 13 months postpartum, I still have not gotten my period. And we're like, okay, well, we need to do something because at this point, I have to if we want to have another baby soon, we have to do something. So I talked to Natalie, who I've actually had on the podcast multiple times. And she's like, well, the best way to get your period back is to not breastfeed from like 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. I was like, how am I going to do that? So we had to figure out how to night wean her. So I still nursed her to sleep, but then we did not nurse until the morning. And it took about 3 days. I did a YouTube video about how we did it. And it was like pretty gnarly. There was 45 minutes of crying twice a night. The first night, the second night was a little easier. The third night was a little easier. And then she was like, okay, cool. And 30 days later, exactly, I got my period back. And so, I mean, you can still ovulate in that time and get pregnant, but I was not tracking it because I hadn't had my period for 2 years. I didn't have my period during pregnancy. I didn't have it during breastfeeding. And so I was like, I'm not even going to keep track of this. We'll start tracking as soon as I get my period. So that was that. When I got pregnant with Aaliyah, I was doing the natural method, which means that you track your basal body temperature, your cervical fluid, and your cervical height and openness. I just wanted to learn about everything. There was this book that I read called Taking Charge of Your Fertility. And this thing is probably in some college class as a textbook. I'm reading this and just finding it fascinating. For example, fun facts by Shay. When men get cold, their balls go up. They do that to keep the sperm warm so that they don't die. When men get hot, their balls drop to keep the sperm from getting too hot so that they don't die. Why I find that so fascinating, I don't know, but I was just like, what? So there's a fun fact, but the rest of it, I mean, the whole thing blew my mind because you have different cervical fluid. So sometimes you're like, oh, discharge is different. You don't keep track of it. You're like, I don't know. Sometimes it's like this. Sometimes it's like this. But then you learn that when it's like this, it means you're ovulating. When it's like this, it means you're not ovulating. You're like, what? Why have we never learned this? Why has this never been taught to us? And maybe it was, I'd never learned it. And the same thing with your cervix. It goes up and down depending on where you are in your cycle. Anyway, super interesting. Go do some research. Some people, my sister's like, I am not tracking all that stuff. And I'm like, really? It's so interesting. I'm telling Seth all these things. Anyway, so I started tracking all of that again. And like nothing. I'm trying to figure it out. And it's really confusing and nothing's making any sense. And so I'm like, okay, we have a window of like 12 to 18 days because my cycle is all over the place, which is why I got pregnant with Aaliyah. I was like, our window is 12 to 18 days. Well, on day 37, I took a pregnancy test that was negative. I'm like, day 37, I'm either pregnant or like, what is going on? On day 47, I decided to take an ovulation and a pregnancy test because I was like, what is going on? I'm 47 days without my period. It's coming up as not pregnant every time I take a pregnancy test. So it must just be my hormones are regulating because I haven't had my period in 2 years. I don't know. And it was positive. I had a positive pregnancy test on day 47 and a negative one on day 37. And I was like, well, was that a false positive or now I don't even know how pregnant I am. So we went into the ultrasound. oh boy. When we went into the ultrasound, they tell me that I'm 6 weeks pregnant, which means that I ovulated on day 30. Gosh, I hope this is not boring for all of you. I find this fascinating. And there are 2 sacs. One is empty and one has a viable baby inside of it. So the nurse is like, well, you were pregnant with twins, but only one is viable. And I was like, oh, what? Like growing up, I loved Mary Kate and Ashley. So I was like, I want to have twins when I'm older. And then when Aaliyah was like 6 weeks old or 2 days old, I was like, holy crap. What if there were 2? How would you do it? God bless twin parents. God bless you. God bless you. And so I've had a couple of miscarriages. And so my sister's checking in with me and she's like, are you okay? How do you feel about it? And I made a miscarriage video and basically said, however you feel is valid. You get to process this however you want. So for this one, for me, I was like, I expected one baby. There is one baby. I'm 6 weeks, which is very early. And there's one that was not viable. And it was okay for me. I was okay with it. Twins are in my family. Then the next thing, Seth and I need to discuss. Do we want to know the gender? With Aaliyah, I was like, how do people not know the gender? Sex. How do they not find out the sex? How? You just wait 9 months and then when the baby's born, you just have, that's just what? And with this baby, I was like, you know what? I don't want to know. And Seth was like, are you sure? Which is funny because it is my personality to want to know and his to be like, whatever. And he was like, I kind of want to know, but we'll do whatever you want, but I kind of want to know. And I'm like, I might change my mind, but I'm still very content with not knowing. We're not going to find out. Well, then we did the panorama, which is like, I don't even know what it tests for genetic defects, I think. And you can find out the gender. So with Aaliyah, I was like, find out about genetic defects. That's fine. I want to know about the gender. But this one, I was like, I don't want to find the gender. But when I went to do my blood panel, they never asked me. And so I was talking to a couple of friends and they're like, yeah, my friends didn't want to know, but then they did the panorama and it was just at the bottom of the results. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Here I am thinking that I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it to the end and have this big, giant, huge, gigantic surprise. And people were like, well, just have your sister read it and tell her not to tell you. I'm like, no, if it is known somewhere on some piece of paper that I can access, I'm not going to be able to make it. But if nobody anywhere knows, then I can make it. So if it's on my phone, on an app that I can access at 2 a.m. in my bed, I'm not going to make it. So I was like, all right, cool. We're going to find out. So I go into another doctor's appointment today and she's like, okay, so this and this and this. And did you want to do the panorama test? And I was like, I did. I already did that. We should get the results, I thought, today. And she was like, oh no, it doesn't look like it was ordered last time. And I was like, okay, well, yes, I would like to do it. And she goes, oh, do you want to know gender? I was like, are you kidding me? I finally come to terms to know that I'm going to know gender and that I'm actually a little bit excited about it. And that it wasn't my decision. It was just like circumstance. Now I actively have to make the decision again when I've already decided that I didn't want to know. And then I decided that I was okay with knowing. And now I have to decide if I want to know again. So I said I wanted to know. Last time Seth and I knew, but we didn't share with anybody. And that was kind of fun. And honestly, round 2, being pregnant, is so different than round 1. People are like, oh, does it feel the same? I'm like, I don't know. I'm too busy trying to keep up with Aaliyah to like figure out if it feels the same. I have less cravings. I am more tired, but hi, I have a toddler that I'm also chasing around with Aaliyah. I was like, we don't do screen time unless I need to like get an email done, or if I'm trying to make dinner. Like there is a purpose to why you are watching a show. In that first trimester, I would be like, Moana or Luca? Which one do you? Aaliyah now knows how to say and request Moana, Luca, Coco Melon, and Bluey. Yeah, no shame in my game. Like, I have no guilt about the amount of TV that she watched. I had babysitters come over and I was like, I'm so glad you're here. Take her outside and get some fresh air for her. Let's do it. Great. Thank you so much. Woof. Oh my gosh, you're just so exhausted. And when you feel sick, you're like, I need to feed this child, but I am having such a hard time even getting up. If I had something to do, get out of the house, go somewhere, and was active, I was good. I was in the green. But as soon as I melted into that couch, there was no getting, I would lay there and I'd be like, I know that if I get up and we go to the park, I will feel better. I can't. I cannot do it. And we watched a lot of TV. I did not get a lot of work done because I had no motivation to do anything. So I got a lot of family time, a lot of snuggle time, and I feel really great about all that. And I don't even feel bad about it. That was like a season and I'm starting to feel better now. I'm starting to work out again, but my energy is still low. The other thing is, in the first pregnancy, you are checking that baby app 3 times a week. You're like, oh, it's still the same size fruit. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. And you're like, oh, it's Monday. I'm a new week, whatever. Sometimes I don't remember how many weeks I am. Right now, I'm 16 weeks. When this goes live, I'll be 17 weeks. I would have announced it 6 weeks, but it's not just your news. It's also your partner's news. So Seth is like, let's wait till 20 weeks. And I was like, 20 weeks? I want to do it at like 6 weeks. Realistically, I said, okay, 12 weeks. He said, okay, 20. We agreed on 15. And now it's just taken me a little bit to get this together to announce it. I think I'm showing, but my friends will be like, send me a bump pic. And I send it to them and they're like, cute. Like, I'm not showing at all, really. It took me to 25 weeks last time, but I was like, ooh, second time around, it shows so much sooner. No, my body just like holds babies in fairly well. I have a very long torso and wide hips, and there's just a lot of room for baby to grow. The other thing is when you're chasing around this baby, this toddler, your toddler, the first baby, you're just not thinking about being pregnant that often. Like, half the time I would like eat the bad blueberry and give her the good one. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't eat the bad blueberry anymore. Maybe I need to throw it away or put it in the compost. Cause now I'm also trying to feed another baby, and we were breastfeeding. So I was like breastfeeding, feeding myself, and growing this human. So my body was on overdrive. So I was eating like a maniac. Such a strange time. I remember feeling with Aaliyah that I hadn't bonded with her. I just thought I don't know, hippie, I could like bond with this baby and feel this like connection with this baby before it even got here. And I just remember not feeling that way with Aaliyah. And people were like, yeah, it's super, like, once the baby comes out, then you can bond with it. But right now you don't know anything about it. So once she started kicking and once I knew gender, that helped. So with this baby, I'm like on the app now and I'm like 16 weeks. Let me look. I feel like the last month it was like 4 inches. Okay. So it says avocado, which I've seen giant avocados and tiny avocados. So that's a very bad example. So 4.5 inches right now. That's not small. And we did a tiny ultrasound, like a handheld ultrasound at my last appointment. And I saw like limbs and a face or a profile and stuff and a heartbeat. And I was just like, what? And I tell Aaliyah there's a baby in there. And now sometimes she'll just point at her belly and go, baby. But then she started looking in her belly and I'm like, well, there's not one in there. So I think that finding out the gender will actually help me to try and connect with it a little bit more. So I'm trying to think of what else to share. I mean, I'm pregnant there and I don't really know what else to share about it. So I will be updating on Instagram all the time and also on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys so much for listening. Please subscribe. Please connect with me on YouTube, Instagram. It's all Hey Shayla.